Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling smaller than when you entered it? You tried to explain yourself, your intentions, your reasons, your truth, and yet, somehow, you ended up feeling misunderstood, drained, and quietly ashamed, not because you said something wrong, but because deep down, you knew they never really wanted to understand you. They just wanted to judge you, to feel right, to confirm the story they already built in their head about who you are. And so, you tried harder. You spoke softer, clearer, more patiently. You replayed the same point 3 different ways, hoping that this time they'd finally see your heart. But all you saw instead was the blank stare of someone who wasn't listening, someone who was waiting for their turn to respond. You left that conversation thinking, maybe I just didn't say it right. Maybe I should have given more context. Maybe they'll understand next time. But there is no next time. Because people who want to misunderstand, you will always find a way. That's the quiet tragedy of human connection. We spend half our lives trying to explain ourselves to those who have already made up their minds. You could give them the most honest piece of your soul, and they'd still twist it into something that fits their comfort zone. And then you wonder, why does it hurt so much to be misunderstood? Because, in that moment, you are no longer speaking to them. You are pleading with yourself, begging for validation, for proof that you're not wrong to be who you are. But what if I told you this? Your need to be understood is not about them. It's about you. It's the ghost of a younger self still desperate to be seen. It's the echo of all the times you were blamed for things you didn't do. It's the remnant of years spent walking on eggshells, trying to prove your goodness in a world that rarely rewards it. So you explain, and you over-explain, until your words become chains, soft, invisible chains that tie your worth to someone else's approval. Friedrich Nietzsche once observed that the individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. He wasn't just talking about society. He was talking about this exact moment, this quiet, invisible battle between your authenticity and your need to belong. Every time you explain yourself to someone who isn't listening, you surrender a little piece of that authenticity. You trade truth for comfort, freedom for validation, self-respect for temporary peace. But peace built on explanation is fragile. It breaks the moment someone questions you again. And that's the cycle most people never escape. They live to explain, defend, justify, clarify, and slowly, they disappear behind their own words. What if you didn't need to? What if you could stand there, misunderstood, and still feel complete? Because maybe the real strength isn't in being understood. Maybe it's in being at peace with not being understood at all. Get ready, because what comes next might completely change how you see the chains you still live under today. There's a moment in every overthinker's life, that quiet, humiliating instant after they've sent a long text trying to justify themselves, and they realize the other person doesn't even care. Maybe they reply with a simple okay. Maybe they don't reply at all. And that silence, it's louder than any insult. You replay every word in your head, wondering what you could have said differently, what version of yourself you should have performed to be understood. But here's the bitter truth: you were never trying to explain yourself to them. You were trying to convince yourself that you're enough. We grow up in a world that rewards compliance. We learn early that approval equals safety, that being liked means being accepted. So we contort, we adjust, we dilute. We explain to the boss why we're quiet, to friends why we're distant, to lovers why we need time alone. But have you noticed? The more you explain, the less they understand you. Because explanation is not connection, it's submission. It's your mind begging to be seen by those who refuse to look. Nietzsche once said that the individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. He didn't mean rebellion for rebellion's sake. He meant that being yourself in a world addicted to conformity is an act of war. Every time you explain yourself, you surrender a small piece of that individuality. You hand over your inner fire to someone else's judgment. Let's be honest. People don't want your truth, they want your agreement. They don't want to understand you, they want to confirm themselves through you. So when you try to explain your boundaries, your dreams, your silence, you're not having a conversation. You're standing trial, and the courtroom is already biased against you. It's a strange paradox. We crave authenticity, yet punish it the moment we see it. You say, "I need space," and they call you cold. You say, "I don't feel like going out," and they call you antisocial. You say, "I'm working on myself," and they call you selfish. But the truth is, people fear what they cannot control. And a person who doesn't explain themselves is uncontrollable. That's why silence is power. Not the kind of silence that hides, but the kind that stands its ground. When you stop explaining, you stop negotiating your worth. You stop trying to make others comfortable with your existence. And something shifts. You begin to radiate a quiet authority that words could never achieve. People might call it arrogance. But it's not arrogance. It's self-possession, the ability to belong to yourself even when nobody else understands you. Nietzsche believed that greatness begins when a person learns to walk alone. When he said, "Become who you are," he didn't mean find yourself in others' eyes. He meant forge yourself in solitude. And maybe that's what your loneliness has been trying to tell you all along. That the version of you constantly explaining, defending, and apologizing was never the real you. That version was a mask built out of fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of being seen as too much or not enough. But when you stop explaining yourself, the mask cracks. And beneath it, you finally see the one thing you were running from: your own power. That's where freedom begins. Not when everyone understands you, but when their misunderstanding no longer shakes you. Because once you stop explaining yourself, you stop living for permission. And that is when your life starts belonging to you again. When you finally stop explaining yourself, a strange emptiness appears. It's quiet, too quiet, almost uncomfortable, because for the first time you're not performing for anyone. You're not bending your truth to fit someone else's understanding. You're just there, raw, unfiltered, alone with your own silence. Most people panic in that silence. They rush to fill it with noise, validation, new faces, new distractions. Because silence exposes something terrifying: just how much of your identity was built around being understood. But here's what Nietzsche understood: that silence is not the absence of life. It's the crucible where a new self is forged. When you no longer justify yourself, you begin to observe yourself. You start to see the impulses, the fears, the patterns you once mistook for you. And for the first time, you realize how much of your life was a reaction, not a choice. That realization burns, as it's supposed to. Because everything false in you must die before the real can be born. There's a quote that says, "Silence isn't empty, it's full of answers." But Nietzsche would have said it differently. He'd say silence isn't full of answers, it's full of yourself. The unfiltered, unadorned, unapproved self, the one that doesn't need applause to exist. The one that doesn't shrink to make others comfortable. The one that doesn't fear being misunderstood, because it no longer needs to be. That's the birth of inner power, not in loud declarations, not in fighting to be seen, but in standing so quietly within your truth that nothing outside can shake it. You'll start to notice it, the shift. Where once you explained, now you simply act. Where once you defended, now you observe. Where once you feared silence, now you become it. And people will notice too. They'll feel something different around you: a weight, a groundedness, a kind of calm that doesn't beg to be understood. That's when you realize silence is not weakness. It's sovereignty. It's the quiet confidence of someone who has nothing left to prove. Nietzsche once described this as the innocence of becoming. When you've burned away everything false, what remains is not perfection, it's clarity. You stop being the echo of others' expectations. You become your own voice. You stop chasing meaning through approval. You create meaning through being. And when that happens, your silence starts to speak louder than any explanation ever could. There's no need to defend who you are when your life itself becomes the defense. No need to justify your choices when peace is the proof they were right. No need to make them understand, because those who are meant to walk beside you will simply feel it. The rest will fall away. Let them. Because you're not losing people. You're losing noise. And in that silence that's sacred, almost frightening quiet, you'll finally hear the sound of something you've been searching for all along, your own becoming. You'll notice something strange once you stop explaining yourself. The world won't clap. It will question you. It will twist your silence into arrogance. It will label your calm as indifference. And when you no longer justify your choices, people will whisper, "Who do they think they are?" But here's the truth: you're not cold. You're not detached. You've simply stopped auditioning for approval. And that scares people, because your silence forces them to confront the noise within themselves. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your peace. You don't owe the world a translation of your soul. Those who truly see you, they won't need words. They'll understand through your presence, your actions, your energy. For them, silence speaks louder than any defense ever could. But for those who don't understand you, no amount of explanation will ever be enough. Because they aren't listening to understand. They're listening to confirm their own judgment. It's like standing on a mountain peak. From up here, you see the vast horizon, the sea, the sky, the infinite expanse. But those still halfway up only see rocks, fog, and broken soil. They'll call you delusional because their view is limited. They'll mock your peace because they haven't tasted it. And when they can't reach where you are, they'll try to pull you back down with words, with doubt, with noise. But don't fight them. Don't defend yourself. Because you can't explain the view to someone who refuses to climb. Nietzsche once said that the higher a man climbs, the smaller he appears to those who cannot rise with him. That's why being misunderstood is not a curse, it's proof you're growing beyond their perception. And maybe that's what strength truly is, not in arguing louder, not in proving you're right, but in knowing that truth doesn't need to shout. People who truly understand you, they don't demand explanations. They feel you. They sense your heart through your silence, your intent through your consistency, your truth through the way you live. Those are your people. Treasure them. Everyone else, let them go. Because life is too short to keep explaining your soul to those who've already decided not to listen. In time, you'll realize the greatest revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's living so well that your peace becomes their confusion. Let time be your voice. Let your growth be your argument. Let your calmness be your victory. You don't need to cry to be understood. You don't need to defend yourself to be respected. Every explanation only feeds their power over your mind. Real dignity is quiet. It doesn't chase validation, it attracts it through stillness. Because when you stop explaining, you stop chasing love that needs convincing. And what remains is pure, the kind of love, peace, and clarity that doesn't need words. Nietzsche believed that solitude was not loneliness, it was elevation. And maybe that's the ultimate form of freedom, to walk your path quietly, to be at peace with being misunderstood, and to know that silence isn't the absence of expression, it's the language of those who've transcended the need to be understood. So stop explaining, stop defending, stop proving, because the moment you no longer need to be understood by others, you finally begin to understand yourself. There comes a moment when you realize you don't need to say anything anymore. Because time has a way of revealing what words never could. It shows who was pretending, who truly cared, who left because they never understood you, and who stayed, even in silence. And suddenly you see it so clearly: you were never supposed to explain yourself. You were supposed to become yourself. Every moment you wasted defending your name, you could have spent building it. Every minute spent convincing others, you could have spent evolving quietly. Because explanations fade. But growth speaks forever. There's no greater argument than transformation, no louder voice than peace, no stronger proof than time. Let the world misjudge you. Let them whisper. Let them twist your silence into arrogance. You don't need to prove them wrong. You just need to keep walking until one day they look up and realize you've become everything they said you couldn't. Nietzsche wrote that everything that is profound loves the mask. He understood that truth doesn't need to be naked, it simply needs to be real. So wear your silence like armor. Move through the world with quiet dignity. Let their confusion echo in the spaces you've outgrown, because the more peaceful you become, the more their noise will expose itself. Remember this: those who truly know your heart will never require an explanation. Those who demand one will never believe it. So choose your peace over persuasion. Choose stillness over noise. Choose becoming over defending. And one day, when the years have passed, when your path has carried you far beyond their reach, you'll look back and smile, not out of pride, but out of understanding, that you didn't need to prove anything. You just needed to live long enough for time to speak on your behalf. Because time will always speak for you, louder than words, purer than defense, truer than explanation. And when it does, you'll finally understand silence was never weakness. It was your becoming, your strength, your truth, your freedom. So if this message found you at the right time, maybe it's because you were meant to hear it. Maybe you've been defending yourself for too long. Maybe you've been trying to explain your soul to people who only see faces. And maybe now it's time to stop, to disappear, to rebuild quietly, to let time, not words, tell your story. If these words resonated with you, then stay, because here we go deeper. We don't chase noise, we decode truth. Leave a like if something inside you shifted. Subscribe if you're ready to see the world and yourself differently. And remember this: before you go, you don't owe anyone an explanation. Not anymore. Because time will speak for you. Never explain yourself to others. Those who understand you don't need words. Those who don't will never believe them. Work without needing everyone to understand. Live without needing everyone to like you. Either befriend those with interesting souls, or live peacefully with the simple and sincere. The true meaning of meeting others is to help each other see more clearly. And if that light never comes, then why fear being alone? Because the most important thing in life is to live your own life, in your own way. When you dare to be true to yourself, to do what your heart calls for, while ignoring the noise of the world, that's when you've already won the greatest battle of all, the one within yourself.